I'd like to present what I hope, well, that's what's it. Man running for the Attorney General.
Thank you,
Robert
Steve.
Owens.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, hey, it's my pleasure. Thank you all for coming out tonight. It's just absolutely wonderful to see the level of activity and interest in our Constitution. Folks that can certainly understand what it means to take an oath of office and how important that oath is. You know, so often we send these guys off to Washington, D.C. and it seems like they're, I think probably the best phrase is political transvestites. Because when they're here in the district, by golly, they sound like Ben Franklin. And by the time they get to Washington, D.C., they vote like Barney Frank. Or Karl Marx. So we've got to do something about that. And of course, that comes into the vigilant citizenship. And that was really the whole issue of what our founding fathers understood would be critical. But before I get into that, let me introduce myself a little bit more. Some of you know me fairly well, but for those that don't, I live in Delaware County. I used to be a prosecutor in Delaware County, so I've taken the oath of office before for that office as well. And my wife and I, we're expecting our first son in early July. And to give you an idea of sort of our philosophy of life and what's important, you know, I can tell you that if I brought home a diamond necklace to my wife, she would look at the thing and say, what is this piece of junk and how is this going to be useful to us? Recently, however, for her birthday, I got her a set of Crimson Trace laser grips.
Nice. Very useful.
Now that she loved. And I'll tell you, those things are really cool. I'm going to see if I can convince her for my birthday to get one for my J-frame Smith 357. I love the things. I've been a trial lawyer for over a decade now, and my practice, especially now that I've gotten out of the government, is to defend small businesses. And to give you an example of that, recently I represented a small real estate company in Delaware County, and when it came time to pay off the loan, to sell one of their buildings and pay off the loan, they contacted the bank, said, hey, we're selling this property, we're going to close in 9 months and pay off your loan. Well, this bank decided, well, what they would do is they would jack the interest rate from 5% to 13% and hold them hostage at closing. Either you close, and they knew this is a tough real estate community, and you gotta sell when the selling's good. And they were going to hold them hostage for 50 grand essentially. Well, by golly, we went to court and we beat that bank in court. And that's the kind of nature and the outlook that I take as we go forward in small business. Now, that also extends to individuals, and recently I've had a string of victories in the Supreme Court of Ohio. Of course, first of all, because I ran in 2008 and I blew all records for non-major party candidates in 2008, the last thing that these party bosses wanted to see on their ballot this year was me. And as a result, they cooked up every kind of chicanery to keep me off the ballot. So I took them to the Supreme Court, we won a victory, and forced the Secretary of State to put me back on the ballot. Well, feeling a lucky streak going on there, and the next opportunity came up, and some of you might be familiar with the Health Care Freedom Amendment, right? Outstanding. Right. Well, the Secretary of State didn't want to let that go on the ballot either. Yeah, and please sign that if you haven't signed that. So myself and another lawyer, a good friend of mine by the name of Maurice Thompson, took that to the Supreme Court. We won a unanimous victory to force that thing through so we have an opportunity to put that on the ballot as well. So that's, when we talk about lawyers, you know, I've got a bumper sticker in my office that says 99% of lawyers give the rest a bad name. And, you know, certainly those in my profession have done a pretty good job of ruining the profession, but there are those of us out there that are defending small businesses and defending people's individual rights to do as they please, to have liberty, to have the liberty that God understood and authored for us. And that's the genesis of where this comes from. We have to understand that when we look to the rights that we have as individuals, right, as wonderful as these documents are, our rights do not come from the Constitution. God gives us rights. That's where our rights come from. The purpose of the Constitution is to safeguard those rights against others that would seek to destroy those rights, to destroy your opportunity for freedom and liberty. Right? Thomas Jefferson had a wonderful quote. He says, when it comes to power, speak no more of men, but bind them down by the chains of the Constitution. Right? And that's what this is all about. And that, of course, comes back to why that oath of office is so critical for us as individuals, right? Because if we have people in government that are not abiding by their oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and of Ohio, right? We're going to have, well, let's take a look around at the government right now, right? That's what we're going to have. Now understand, however, that our founding fathers realized that the key, critical Achilles heel of a constitutional republic was a vigilant citizenry. And that's what it was all about. And in fact, when you go back and you look at the debates during the Constitutional Convention, the idea of should we have a monarchy or this, no, that's not really what the debate was. The debate was, will people have enough care, have enough concern for the affairs of politics to actually make this system work? That was what the debate was all about. And in fact, when the Constitutional Convention in 1787 ended and all these luminaries come strolling out of Independence Hall, right, nobody knew what was going on in there. It was totally secret. And they come strolling out. This lady runs up to Ben Franklin and says, "Sir, what have you given us?" So nobody knew at the time. Now, consider his answer here, because this is really prophetic. He said this: a republic, if you can keep it. Now, there's two aspects to that are critical. One is, understand that we are a republic. And if any politician or anybody running for office says we live in a democracy, no, they're not worthy of your vote because they're too stupid to hold their office. And they certainly can't understand what the Constitution means if they can't even figure that out. Right? But the second part, I think, is perhaps even more important. If you can keep it. That's the critical aspect of what's going on. And as we look around our society today, right, we see folks that are more interested in voting for American Idol than for, political officers, right? We find folks that are so concerned with their mortgage payments and getting their kids to soccer practice and everything else, that when you let them know the truth of what's going on in our government, right, they just shut you out because they don't have time for it. I got to tell you, the exact same conditions existed in 1787, right? Because while Ben Franklin may never have flown on one of those, right, and Thomas Jefferson may never have watched the World Series on TV, human nature is exactly the same then as it is today. It remains the same, which means power-hungry people that are out to seek political office for personal gain, for power, for monetary advancement, all of that existed just as it existed then, it exists today. And so we understand that these are unchanging truths that we're dealing with.